Okay, in this demonstration, we're going to take a look at Dashboard Designer and how to create different objects. As you see, I've got Dashboard Designer open, and I've already made a connection into my VentureWorks cube, which gives me my multi-dimensional data. So I'm going to come on over here to Performance Point Content, and I'll move over to the Create tab at the top. And the first thing we're going to create, we'll come through and just create a KPI, and I'll create a blank KPI and say OK, and that pops on up. Let's do a little resizing in here. So now I've got actual and I've got target, and I'll come in and I'll change the value of the target just so you can see us doing that. So I'll come over here and I'll go fixed. I'm going to change source. I'm going to click into the connection into my VentureWorks cube and say OK. Now down here I can select a measure, and I'll pull down my selection chevron. Here's all the measures we can look at. Let's look at internet sales amount. I don't know why I always pick that. But internet sales amount, we'll say OK. And now I've got internet sales amount down here, and we've got a KPI created. So now I'll go over to the properties page and I'll name it internet sales amount target, just so we know what it is. And let me correct the fat finger. And I'll click Browse just to put it into a display folder. And I'll put KPIs so I can keep it separated. And say OK down there like that. So now you see in the Performance Point Content, I've got this. The little pencil icon simply means not saved. Then I'll right click it down here and I can save it. And now it's posted up to my Performance Point Content list on my SharePoint site, which is this one down here. You see them connected into. The name of this server is work, and that's the port it's connected to. So now we'll come down and create another object. I'll go back over to Performance Point Content, and let's come down here and create a scorecard so you can see one. And I'll create an Analysis Services scorecard. Say OK, again, using my connection into my cube. And now I can add KPIs either from Analysis Services, which means the definition is down in the cube in Analysis Services, or I can import them. And if I go add down here, you see I'm starting to add all these KPIs. These KPIs down here are actually over in the cube. Let's get rid of those because we're going to add them later. And I'll say next. I could put a filter in here, but I'm not going to at this time. And I'll just finish it on out. And now I have a scorecard up here. I'm going to expand out my KPIs, and we're going to add a KPI to the scorecard. Here's our friend Internet Sales, which we had over here. We're going to take it over and drop her. And now I've got Internet Sales Amount. And let's go over to the Edit tab, call Update. And as you can see, I'm way off target because 1 compared to 29 million is pretty bad. Let's go in and fix that. I'm going to switch back over to my Before I do that, let me put the scorecard. Let me change the properties on the scorecard, and I'm going to call this Internet Sales Scorecard. Okay, and I'll add it into a display folder again, and I'll call these scorecards. These display folders are pretty handy when you have a lot of objects down there. So I'll say OK, and I've got my scorecards in here again. Now I'll come back over, and you see the change over here in the workspace browser. So let's go back over to this and to Internet Sales Amount, back into the editor, and let's fix this. It was about 29 million and let's change this here to 30 million. 30, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 30 million. I'll say OK, and that's a fixed amount I'm going to use. Come back over to my scorecard. Again, I'll call Update. And now you see it's green. We like green is always good, of course, except in teeth. So we have 30 million across here, and I have 29 million as my target. So we're 2% over target, and that's fine. Now again, we'll come back on over to Performance Point Content. I'm going to go to the Create tab, and this time we'll come in and we'll create an analytical chart and Analysis Services connection. And now you have this little error down here, which really essentially says I have no idea what you want to look at. So let's come down here and look at the same stuff. We'll take Internet Sales Amount and drop that down here. Now I have the measure Internet Sales Amount. and we want to do some kind of a chart. So we're going to do an axes down here. We're going to move over to the dimensions and internet sales amount. We'll take that down there. Let's look at by product, and let's look at it by category, and we'll drop that down. And now you see I have a blob. That's kind of ugly. The blob is because it's all being returned down here, and we'll change the values. Let's dump out all, and go in and look at accessories, bikes, clothing, and components, and say okay. And now you see the components are almost zilch, but in comparison, we have that down here, and we can go through and we can save it. Let's again go over to the properties, and I'll call this, let's see, this is a chart, and that was internet sales and by product. Sounds good. So now, and again, I'll put it into a display folder, and I'll put down here charts. So now as I move off, it'll reconfigure, and now I've got that. Now I've got the KPI, scorecard, and the chart. And one last thing, we'll come down here, and we're going to go in and we're going to create a, well, it's not quite one last thing. Let's create the filter. So we'll come down here and we'll create a filter. And our filter, we're going to come in, and the filter is going to be of a type member selection. Okay, and I'll say okay again, connecting into the cube. Filter measure reseller. See, that's the default filter measure that I have down here that I can come through and take a look at. And as a matter of fact, we'll select the filter dimensions down here. I'm going to cancel out of that. I've changed my mind. Let's go down there and do a different kind of a filter. We'll come in here and we'll do this filter down here like this, and we'll come in and we'll use a, okay, I've reversed myself again, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and use a select member. So we'll come in here and we'll pick the filter dimension. By the way, if you fire yours up and you don't see this, that's a change that came in Service Pack 1. All right, so I'm going to select the dimension down here, and I'm going to drop this on down, and we're going to apply, let's see, internet sales. We'll apply the products. Let's go with the product subcategory. Sounds okay. And now we can, oops, I can select the members, and we'll go with just a couple of these down here. I don't care. And we'll say okay. And then I'll pop that on down. I'll go multi-select tree, and I'll finish that on out. And we'll put the filter into, we'll name this, let's see, product subs. Okay, and put it in the display folder. Again, we'll create filters. And we'll say okay. And now we'll come back across and create the one more thing. I'm going to right click in here, and I'm going to select new dashboard. And I don't care, we're going to look, let's go 3 columns. These are very easy to change, as you'll see just down here in a second. If I actually wanted to change it, I could right click and see and split the zones, or I can add multiple zones, etc. So now let's go over to the properties, and we're gonna name this demo 1. Actually, this is more than 1, so I'll name it demo 2. Put it in the display folder. Sounds fine. And I can pick a master page down here if I wanted to. I can down here and pick the master page. Now that's not going to work till I browse into my document libraries, which is okay. And now I can pick my master page, and I'll go minimal. It's no big thing down in here. So now let's get back over to the editor and make it work. Let's expand out the scorecards, and I'll put the scorecard on here, internet sales. All right, and let's put a report on there. And I'll put a chart on there, and let's expand this on down and put a filter on there. And I've got my filter down here also. And now we'll go ahead and deploy it on out to SharePoint just to get a look and see what it looks like. And here we are, and up here's my filter. Notice they're not wired together right now, so nothing's going to change when I come in and click that. But here's my grid, and here's my chart. And again, if I right click this, I've got all these functions that we already took a look at. So let me get out of that and go back over to Dashboard Designer and just take this filter, which I just threw together without any paying really attention down in here. And here's my filter. Let's connect it. Let's take member unique values and drop it over in here. So I'm going to go product categories, member unique value, and I'll say OK. And now we'll deploy again. And now as I bring this on down here, I can add other stuff and apply it down here, and now you see I have a change. You have to do some planning in here when you're looking at where you're going to do your filter and how you're going to apply the filters, etc. As I went through the different objects, you'll notice I could have applied a filter in the objects when I was coming through and creating them, or we can do it up here in the dashboard. There's pros and cons to both. You know, one of the disadvantages of actually doing it here in the dashboard is I've got these, I've taken up this screen estate, so I've got that down in here and I've got that consideration. However, if I do it within the object itself, then it's auto-filtered, and that could be a problem. Depending on the type of a dashboard you have, remember you can always go down there and go into your decomposition tree, or you can go in your drill down and do different selections. Again, your organization, I'll come down and I can drill this ad infinitum. And that's the basics of dashboards in 10 minutes.